start the slideshow here. So basically, I want to talk a little bit about where we're at right now and where we're going with what is called quantum medicine. And quantum medicine it's evolving on multiple levels, but basically we're looking at a slightly multi-dimensional model of looking at health and wellness, because the physical, working with just the physical world, has a lot of limitations, which we've discovered through chemical medicines and surgery. All of those things are very, very helpful and work at the physical level. But I think even Anil said, or Rashmi had said earlier, that most illnesses start on the inside. They don't start on the outside. And of course there are things that are affected from the outside. We know about toxins, poisons, pests, things that do attack us from the outside. But our immune system and what our strength is to combat these things all starts within. And so I would like to talk a little bit about what these are. I thought this was a great saying by Plato. Those that are able to see beyond the shadows and lies of their culture will never be understood, let alone believed by the masses. And so I'm going to address here is not accepted by the masses. There are many people around the world working with these concepts, and it's growing. It's becoming not quite to the masses, but it's quantum medicine is coming into the forefront and being understood by more and more, even medical professionals. But let's just talk a little bit about where we've come from and where we're at. And if you look at this chart, in the last 2,000 years, everything goes exponentially, which means that as we progress even faster based on what has come before us. And you look back, a couple thousand years ago, 2 million years ago, we had stone tools, and then we went to bronze, and we learned how to use metal and iron, and then machines like the water wheel. That didn't come about until pretty late on, just a couple hundred years ago. And from there, it was a very quick transition into steam engines, which would use the water but then heat it up, and then we could use that power of water somewhere else than where the water was coming from, like from a stream, for example. And then we moved into electrical, and this was the biggest shift probably in history that we've experienced in pretty ancient history until present time, is when we discovered electricity. And that only happened just a couple hundred years ago, and where that's gone to today is just actually unbelievable. Of course, then we had automobiles and aircraft, but this is the part that I'm excited about here, is information and communication technologies. And this has only come about really in the last 50 years, 75 years, of understanding that we could communicate long distance and exchange information anywhere in the world. And now we can of course do it instantaneously, like what we're doing right now with this Zoom meeting, is something that was science fiction when I was young, even in my lifetime. Even in my lifetime, what we're doing right now was considered science fiction. The other aspect is the accelerating pace of change, and that's what I was talking about. It's logarithmic, so that means that as we go up the curve, it piles on top of itself until basically we get to a very, very unbelievable change of pace of in this case technology, but change itself. As humans, we're going through these changes, and the changes that we're going through right now with this great reset and the push towards globalization and condensation of information, and the information is so vast at this point, it's unbelievable. So this point of getting to the singularity, as they call it, they're predicting this basically around 2045. We've already had the ability with technology to surpass the brain power of a mouse in 2015. And they're predicting by 2023 that it'll surpass the brain power of a single human. And by 2045, we're talking about things like intelligence or artificial intelligence will surpass the brain power equivalent to all of the humans combined on the planet by 2045. And that will lead to what we call the singularity, where information is consolidated and basically, well, we don't really know what's going to happen when this point hits. There are a lot of different theories about it, but basically it's a total transformation where all information is available to all people at the same time. So this will be, we're in very, very exciting times here. The Internet of Things is part of this expansion of communication, and it's already here. It's going even further, but we already have 50 billion smart objects out there. I think many of you probably already have a refrigerator that has computer technology in it. I know here in America it's become very popular. Your refrigerator is connected to the internet, pre-programmed, and every time you take the milk out and you use some, it registers this, and when it gets too low, it can automatically then order online more milk to be delivered. And this is just the tip of the iceberg. But we're seeing all kinds of interactivity between technology and humans. The technology serving humans is the idea, but it's starting to come together and blend. And there are many, many very intelligent people that are concerned about this, and I feel rightly so, of where technology will interface with humans. There's a big push for transhumanism to integrate technology with the human body and with humans, which I don't think will work out quite the way that they think it is. But they think that they can take the consciousness of an individual and upload it into a computer. There have been many science fiction movies about this at this point. Transcendence was one of them. Upload the consciousness to a computer, and therefore that person will live forever. And most of the people working in this particular field understand already that soul and the mind are separate. The mind is built. We build our mind throughout our lifetime, but we also have our consciousness, and our consciousness is not the mind. It goes beyond the mind, and can go beyond the mind. It came before the mind, and came into this physical world not built. But the mind itself is built upon during this lifetime. And they're confusing the two, thinking that the mind is the soul. And that's something that I think most people that meditate deeply and have a deeper understanding of their spiritual awareness and where they've come from, especially if you get to the point where you can remember even a couple of past lives, even if you don't remember all your past lives. But if you can remember a few of your past lives, you already know that you've been moving in and out of the physical world, and that death itself is not the end of existence. It's just a transition point, like the butterfly we saw in the last presentation. So I'm getting sidetracked a little bit here, but this is important to understand the difference between consciousness interactive technology, which is what I'm going to talk about, versus attempting to replace consciousness with technology or interface it with the human body so that there would be some kind of a physical interface. But it's happening, it's coming very quickly. We're all going to be impacted by this, and we have to have a plan in ourselves spiritually to know where we stand in the race for integration with this artificial intelligence that is already massively present here on the planet, and our individual soul awareness and soul consciousness. I do want to play this short thing. I think I need to turn on my sound. And this is a really good explanation about what information is and how it impacts us. And so I'd like to just play this short video. It's only a couple of minutes. And we hope that it's going to play.
We need a new theory. And such a theory is what the physicists and mathematicians of quantum gravity research in Los Angeles are working on. They call it emergence theory, and it will, really for the first time ever, provide an explanation for the speed of light and the other constants, such as Planck's constant and the fine structure constant. A growing number of physicists are saying reality is made of information. What does that even mean? Well, information is meaning in the form of symbolism. A language or code provide this kind of information-conveying symbolism. A very different type of symbol is one that represents itself. Geometric symbols can do that. A cube can represent love, if we say it does, or it can represent, really with minimal subjectivity, itself. Could there be a language or code made out of geometry? What type of information would such a language express? Quantum physics theory and classical physics indicate that reality is made of information, and there is no evidence that reality is made of anything other than information. Many physicists agree with this, and many don't. But those that don't agree that reality is made of information have no explanation for what reality is, if it's not information. Gentlemen?
Reality is made of information.
Nope.
Yes, it is made of information.
No.
Okay, so what is it made of if not information?
Energy.
Energy is information.
That's stupid.
Energy is the potential for a particle to change its position. Potential is information. Energy is information.
Nope.
It's information. Then what is it?
Not information.
And what is it?
Not information.
Okay, I think you get the picture here. This is an ongoing debate, and this is the crux of what quantum medicine is all about, is informational fields.
We need a new...
And information is moving into many, many different areas. We all know about Bitcoin by now, which is stored information that we use as money. And this one happens to be a decentralized form of money, but even all money is moving into informational-based money. They're going to be called central bank digital currencies. The central banks around the world are all working on this to create a digital currency that will be centralized instead of decentralized. Decentralized means that nobody has control over a Bitcoin. It's in the field as such, and everyone can see it, but no one has control over it. Whereas a central bank digital currency, like they already have one in China, and all the other countries are working on them, they have total control over all of the money that's created in the digital realm. And the next phase of central bank digital currency is it's called programmable money. So in other words, they can put information into your money, like when you get paid, you go to work and you get paid in their digital currency, it will be programmed so that in some cases you can buy certain things and you cannot buy other certain things depending on your history and your social credit. Like in China, they have a social credit system, which is, they're trying to expand that worldwide to where if you are interested and going along with the belief systems of, let's say, your particular country, then your digital currency will be able to buy things that people that do not agree with the government are able to buy. So this is a form of digital control. So when people say information doesn't have any power, information is the basis of power, and that's what's building the system for global government. Basically, is global government, where we're all moving toward now as a society and as a race, is going from individual governments to a global government. Now, whether you agree or disagree with that concept is personal choice, and I don't want to present it in one way or the other. I'm quite neutral on that perspective. But
Don, I would like to little bit, I understand this. Like I also wanted to know this information, how it can translate into wellness.
Okay.
If you can just
Yep.
help us understand a little
Yep,
bit.
that's the next point. Exactly.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No problem. So I just wanted to show you that information itself is based as the fundamental for change. And so these are Bitcoin servers. They're technology, and they hold information, and they are the new currency. Instead of paper money, we're using digits, and they're all stored in servers like this. But exactly what is information? And that's the question that we have to come to. We have to understand what information is first, and then how is it applied to wellness. So let's imagine first of all that nothing exists, nothing at all. But there's a point in space. There's just a point in space. We call it the 0 point. But it doesn't have any information. Since there's if there was only one point in space, there would be no other. There would be no information to designate it. But as soon as we give that point in space a designation, in this case like the number 3, then this creates what we would call a scalar or a gravitational field, or it gives an ability to imply space. So first we had one-dimensional space. We just had one point in space. But as soon as you have information, there may not be a second point, but it implies a second dimension. It implies both 2 and 4 by designating it as 3. And that's what the power of information is that it creates a point or a aspect in time and space which implies other dimensions. So when we have 2 points in space, and now this is actually manifest from 3 to 4, that's when we have what's called a vector. And then you can have energy, because energy will move from point A to point B, in this case from 3 to 4. So like they were saying in that little talk there, energy is information. You need to have informational structures for energy to even be created or flow. So in normal energy, we have energy starting at point A, and in this case we're going to move to the left towards point B. Now in a normal, I'm giving the example of electromagnetic field, an energy field. It moves from point A to point B. And what happens over that time period, as a normal vector, energy moves from point A to point B. It's strongest at point A, and it falls off the further that it gets away from point A to point B. The signal is lost, or the energy is lost. Now, that's energy. Now, with information, it works very differently. With scalar, the informational field, the information is exactly the same at point A and point B as long as there's enough energy to carry it from point A to point B. In the case, I'll give you an example with a radio signal. So you have a radio tower, and it's sending out the information about the current political situation on point A. And 300 miles away, there's just a little bit of signal left on the radio, but you can dial it in and you can hear it, even though it might break up a little bit. There's a little static, but the information gets through. There's enough to get the information through. So even 300 miles away from the radio tower, it's very strong here, but here it's very weak signal. The information, as long as it's strong enough to carry that signal, you get exactly the same information if you're close to the tower or you're 300 miles away. Now, if you get too far away and the electromagnetic signal drops off, of course, then you wouldn't have the information transfer. You would just get static. But try to understand what this part, the scalar, is versus the signal. The signal is different than the information. And this is Professor Konstantin Mail. He's a professor in Germany, and he's one of the only people that really understands currently at a university level to teach what scalar is. And he helped to create some of these passive scalar coils, and you might recognize this in packages. When you go to a store, oftentimes they'll have a little antenna inside the package. When you open it up, you'll find this little antenna in there. And it's a passive antenna, but when it goes through an electromagnetic field, it can set off an alarm. And he was responsible for helping them to understand how something passive like this could actually have or work together with energy because of the basis of the scalar mathematics with it. So there aren't very many people that understand this. He was also working with Nokia to create a cell phone that would charge itself just from the electricity that's in the air without wires or anything. And they never put that all the way through, but maybe they're still working on it. But he was also working together with them on that. This is one of his scalar healing devices, and this works on non-electromagnetic fields. In other words, with scalar informational fields, we have to collapse the electromagnetic field, and mathematically, and I go through this in my book, Regaining Wholeness Through the Subtle Dimensions. When we collapse the electromagnetic field, it doubles the scalar amount, or the informational field. And so these are large Tesla coils. Nikola Tesla really is the one that developed this first and understood it, and then we've developed this into an instrument that not only can receive informational fields, but then send them to the target at a distance, which means that, for example, if I have a sample from a living, let's say a plant or an animal or a person, a sample could be a photograph of that person, or it could be a physical sample like a hair sample or a leaf from a plant, and we put it into the SE5, then we can do a complete analysis of that subject from a distance. From like in agriculture, we can find the soil porosity and the nutrients that are in the soil, and we're not reading the physical nutrients, but everything has a vibrational informational structure that it is emanating, and then we tune into that informational structure, and we can measure the strength of that, and then if something is out of balance, then we can balance that. So these are some of the scalar coils in our instrument. As you notice, they look very similar to those passive scalar coils that you might find in your products, but these are active. These are actually scalar amplifiers to amplify that phenomena. It's basically a phenomena of being able to receive information and transmit information over endless distance without any loss of information. Just the inside of There's some pictures from the inside of the SE5. So what we call this is consciousness interactive technology. So this is not the same as technology interacting with us. This is us acting as our divine spiritual self, interacting with the technology or influencing the technology or working together with the technology. But it's not about implanting technology that would then have an effect on us, or yeah, possibly even now they're doing things where they've implanted different electrodes in the brain, and they can, via the internet, have another person that's hooked up to a headband with the same electrodes, like a surgeon, for example, can remotely move another person's body and make their hands do things without their conscious will. In other words, they're allowing it to happen, but they're hooked up in these experiments, and the surgeon on one end can move the hands of another person via Wi-Fi. That's not what we're talking about. This is us imprinting our consciousness and amplifying the effect of consciousness through scalar technology. This is just one experiment. I don't think we need the sound on this one. This was an experiment that was done on, what we did was we imprinted the water on the right with informational fields. Now we're just imprinting information into the water. There's no electromagnetic charging of the water. We say it's charged water, but it's basically imprinted water with information, somewhat like homeopathy. And then time-lapse photography with normal tap water. There you see finally one went on the right, but on the left they were really starting to fall down much quicker. And eventually, of course, all flowers will wilt and go down, just like humans eventually will age. But the process of imprinting the water, that's 14.5 days later. But at 11 days, you can see the difference between the uncharged water and the charged water, or imprinted water. So the point of this is that our body is basically made up of 70% water. In that case, we were imprinting water. You can imprint lots of things with information. Crystals work really well for imprinting, for example. But also food and water. Water is a really good carrier of these things. So we did an experiment. You know that a lot of experiments have been done with food preservation with pyramids. And pyramids create a special energy about them. So we thought, well, we could try a couple different experiments. So we used a physical pyramid for some of the fruit, and then a virtual pyramid, which means that we just used a photo of a pyramid, and then you'll see the difference. So this was the control sample, meaning that nothing was done to these two tomatoes. And let's see if that moves around. Yeah, okay. So this was July 4th. It started on April 26th. Then you can see a little bit of mold growing around here, and it was starting to get black on the control sample on July 4th. The virtual pyramid looked really good, and they also did taste tests. So they cut these open and tasted them, graphed everything out. This one tasted great. They only did one of them and kept the second one to keep going. This was a virtual pyramid, meaning I took this photo. We took this photo and then sent the information of this pyramid, which is the pyramid in Pyramid Valley, to the tomato, and it preserved the tomato better than the control. For some reason, the physical pyramid didn't do well at all. the tomatoes rotted and got very black. And then we also balanced one just with the SE5. And that means we just sent the informational fields directly to the tomato without any kind of using a pyramid whatsoever. And those also looked really good. But the winner of all of them was the tomato that we sent the virtual pyramid energy to, or information to, and this was on 26th of August, and it started in, and now these weren't refrigerated or anything, they were just sitting outside in India. So there's unrefrigerated tomatoes, and this one still, and they cut it open and it still tasted great. It had lost a little bit of weight, water weight, but it was still tasty, even after that long, several months, 123 days. And
I have a question here. Don, you said the real energy of the pyramid did not help. I just have a question there. What does that mean? So the information is more powerful than the actual reality, real environment?
This particular one, and we did try to analyze this and try to figure out why the physical pyramid did not. It was a small pyramid. It was a small pyramid. It wasn't a large pyramid. It did not seem to preserve the fruit as well as even the control. And you don't know what was starting in the tomato to begin with. So, you know, these are not perfect studies, obviously. We're using totally different tomatoes. But we didn't quite figure it out. I know some people had some theories about it. This was done several years ago, and I don't remember, but we did have a lot of discussions about this physical versus virtual, and the physical pyramid just didn't perform as well. So I don't have a complete answer for that one. But it's a great question. We also puzzled on this one for weeks, trying to figure it out. This is just an overview.
Maybe the information fields are more powerful than
the physical. Well, yeah, and it could have been the design of the pyramid versus,
Right.
The actual pyramid that they were using. I think was made out of wood, and I know copper pyramids have generally been used for the food preservation, sharpening of razor blades, and all of those kinds of things. I have a small copper one here with it's gold plated, and we've had really good results with that, doing different types of experiments. But this one was a wooden pyramid, so I don't have the actual answer for that. Yeah. Okay, so now we're going to move into what is quantum medicine, and going back to your question, Rashmi, how does information relate to quantum medicine and quantum wellness? And this is it's a large field. If you Google quantum medicine, you'll find lots of different things about it now. It's become its own thing. The world of quantum energy medicine, the first one was in Hawaii, and the second one we did in Pyramid Valley, in near Bangalore. And this is their definition of it. Quantum medicine uses the principles of quantum physics, such as non-locality, which means things being in two different places, tangled hierarchy, which means that once two atoms, in this case, if we talk about atomic entanglement, once two atoms interact with each other, they become entangled and they have effect on each other even at a distance. And this is from quantum physics, and a lot of experiments have been done in that regard. And discontinuous leap in consciousness to better understand medicine. So quantum medicine is really in its infancy, very much in its infancy, but a lot of people are starting to do experiments outside of normal everyday medical things. And this was another summit on quantum technology and quantum wellness in China, and Wangang and Hanye are two of my very good friends and colleagues working in China on the same principle. And they took some of this research that we've been doing and applied it, and they've built an institute here, a 4-story building, and they have like 180 SE5s in there, and they do remote analysis and balancing, and a lot of it's done with agriculture. They do work on subjects as well, but mostly they're focusing on agriculture at this point. Now the next step was, so we have individual units that people can work on themselves and their clients, but we looked for a way to expand this so that an everyday person could experience this and find out how this worked for themselves. And so we've created what's called the Quantum Global Network, which is a collection of, at this point, I don't know, maybe there's 1,000 SE5s, the technology of the SE5, these scalar amplifiers. We have about 1,000 of them spread out throughout different parts of India, China, America, and it's something like the internet, but it's a quantum network that you can get on and do balancing on yourself from a distance. So this is one way to do it. You can do it yourself and explore it yourself and choose your own programs and run the programs on yourself, and that's this is in India. It's at qsserver.com, and you get some free points. It's done with points, so you get like 400 free points when you sign up, and then you can try out some of the programs and see how they work for you. And then if you like that, then of course you purchase points and run different programs. We have a lot of different programs. There's probably, I would say, 150 different programs, or maybe even 200 programs here that you can choose from, and I'll show you a list of some of the ones that we also have. But these are using what are called quantum internet servers that we've built, and so inside of these are just some racks and racks of servers, similar to Bitcoin, but now instead of mining money and using information for money, we're using it for health. And so this goes back to Rashmi's question too, is how does this informational technology then get applied to health? And this is what we've been doing for the last 35 years, a little bit more than that. So this was the very first server that I built, and it was just some pictures of us putting it together. It was very exciting. And you see the same scalar amplifiers that we use in the SE5 are built into these little servers so that we can, now these only do balancing. There's no analysis. They only do balancing. So these are pre-written programs. In other words, it's not a personal analysis. If you need a personal analysis, you need to go to a practitioner to find out exactly what you need. But we found that many generalized programs work very well for people. And so you can experiment with this yourself at qsserver.com. We also have another service where then we do the balancing, and there is the ability to have a custom analysis done as well, specifically for you if you need to have that, although we have a lot of programs that cover so many general things. And for example, we have immune system boosting, stress reduction, allergies, vitality support. Now all of these are not working directly on the physical body. These work on the informational fields. Your body is the healer. Remember always that your body has everything in it that it needs. It just needs the right instructions or the right information or the right program to turn on, and basically your DNA knows how to create the proteins, balance the sugars. It knows how to do everything. It just needs the right instruction. So all we do is send informational fields, and then your body does the healing. We have DNA activation, anti-aging, exercise, detoxing. These are all different categories that you can choose from. And then these programs, individual programs, would be ones that you would choose to have run on yourself. And then I have staff in Bali that runs these programs every day. And once you choose your programs, they take care of everything for you. Whereas with the quantum server, you actually go on and you have to find which program you want to run, and then you run it yourself, which is another way to do it. So for the Quantum Wellness Hub, basically you get 4 programs a month, and we balance that one of those, each program, 3 times a week. So each week you get a different program, and we balance that 3 times a week, and then go to another program. If you need more of one thing, then you can choose the same program twice and do it for 2 weeks or whatever. And that's a subscription for $49.95 per month. So that's at the quantumwellnesshub.com. So we have 2 different ways, well, there are many different ways for you to experience this, but if you go to the QS server, you can get some free points and try it out, and if you like it, you can continue there and do your own programs, or if you want to sign up for a subscription and have us do the balancing, then we can do that. So that's basically all I've put together to share today, and then if there are some questions, I'm very happy to answer questions about this. And this was a very compressed, short version of this, and I didn't put my other website on there, but if people want to get my book for free, they can go to se-5.com and download my book, and it'll go into a lot more detail on this. Yeah. So
Yeah, I know it's a very vast subject, and you have tried to put it together in 30 minutes. Yeah. And
So,
many
was
of
there
us,
any negative effects done on? So, because you are trying to control the mind, like putting the information high level, I kind of understood. Do you see anything negative side effects during this? And in the talk, you also mentioned about somebody else is controlling your putting the
right, and that's that's where the transhumanists are going. They would like to implant everybody with technology that then they could control by remote. And with consciousness interactive technology, like what we're doing, it's the person's own consciousness that does the healing, not the remote control person. So all we do is send the information, and then your own consciousness and your own system, it works together with the body, mind, and soul. Your own system does the healing and puts into action. So in the case of, let's say, we send information that's not needed or not necessary or wouldn't be healthy for you, your own consciousness just doesn't even see that information. It's not relevant. It only takes in relevant information. So in the case of a virus balancing, if you have no viruses, that information doesn't have anywhere to resonate with. So it's all about patterns and resonance, and when they fit together, they resonate, and when they're not, there's just goes by. Yeah. That's a great question. Yeah, really good question. So this is like 2 ends of the spectrum between the transhumanist agenda and wanting to program everything, physically program everything. You can do more research on this, but
it's a very deep subject when karma also comes into the picture.
Exactly.
Like how they interfere with karma, and
Yeah.
how we try to heal with this quantum energy.
Yeah, and that's
Yeah, a lot of
a
questions
really
come
good
up
question about karma, because that's one of the first thing when we do an analysis, when we do an individual analysis, we have to go through several different levels to test first to see if it's even appropriate to use this technology. Because if a person has chosen karma, for example, seed karma, we choose a seed to bring us down here. We don't have if we have no karma, we can't get here. We can't even get here to manifest in the physical world. So we grab onto some seed karma, and that pulls us down. It's information, basically informational. It's an informational field. It's a seed of information that we as soul basically grab onto, which helps pull us into the physical manifestation. And that's something that with this technology we do not want to mess with, because you don't want to, let go of seed karma, the person will
Interfere.
interfere.
Right. Right.
It would appear that the person would then, transcend and go to another plane of existence. So that's one of the first things that we test to find out if it's appropriate to work, and if there are any blockages to working with this technology, because sometimes it hasn't happened often. I've had it happen maybe a half a dozen times in 35 years, where it was just like totally inappropriate to work on the person, and they, every time that did come up, I would ask the person, I would say, well, do you feel like you have a lesson, or you're learning about, is this a really big learning lesson for you, in the case of a disease, for example? And they go, oh my God, yes, it's been my life-changing thing. It's my path. It's my, this is how I'm learning in life. And it's like, okay, well, we don't touch that then. Let's let you learn the lesson, because that's why we came here. That's more important. But many things are not. Most things are not like that. Like, for example, environmental toxins, EMF pollution. It goes on and on. Especially things coming from the outside, but also internal things. Simple negative thought programming from our parents, or our school, or whatever. That all of that stuff piles up. And also, Anil, in business, we've had lots of people work with this in business and corporations, and with groups at the psychological level.
Sorry, Don, with limit of time, we need to
okay.
wrap up the session.
Okay.
Because our next
Yes, thank
speaker is waiting for us.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
All right. Well,
Yeah,
thank you
yeah.
very much for having me, and it was very exciting.
Actually, there is a quick question from Sukanya that we want to answer. Wait 1 minute. Does this involve processing data of every individual on quantum level?
I didn't. It broke up just a little bit. Can you restate the question?
Does this involve processing data of every individual on quantum level?
Not. You mean every individual on the planet, or each individual?
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, I don't
Each individual.
Yeah.
I think it's each individual what she means.
Yeah.
In one more time, Rashmi.
Yeah, I think she meant it's each individual when it comes to healing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what we do is we actually check the resonance. It has to do with the basic blueprint that we've chosen. We call it a good metaphor is the DNA. The DNA is the blueprint of how things manifest, and so that the DNA functions on a quantum level. It's a quantum scalar antenna, which is pulling the information from a higher dimension, and so we find out where the resonant blockages are, and then bring that back into resonance, and then the DNA brings the appropriate information from the quantum level in. So it's really the person activating the quantum field, not us. So hopefully that'll answer the question.
Thank you very much, Tom.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you guys so much, and it was a
And
real pleasure.
Thank you so much.
For audience who are interested
Thank you
in
so much.
learning more about quantum wellness, we are having workshops and also certification courses.
Yeah,
We'll soon announce the dates.
yeah, and I will be doing a longer workshop where we can do some hands-on things, which you can notify everybody of. But we'll do it through the university in the next coming time. Yeah, I'm happy to do that.
Thank you, Don.
Okay,
Thank you
thanks so
very
much.
I'll introduce our next speaker tonight. We have Saryu Dalal. Saryu Dalal has been championing yoga, breathing techniques, and energy healing practices for over 20 years. Before she embarked on her journey to become a master life coach, leadership trainer,